Yeah, we'll get to those. All right, let's start with the Duke loss on the controversial call at Virginia in Charlottesville. They lose in overtime, but in a tie game, Kevin, Kyle Filipowski drives and appears to get fouled. There was a foul called, but then they went to the monitor, the officials, they reviewed it, and they determined that the foul occurred after the clock hit 0. To me, watching it, I thought he was clearly fouled with a body before the clock hit 0. What was your take on the call, and did Duke get hosed on this?
I think they did. I mean, first off, I think he was fouled before the clock hit 0. I mean, second of all, I think the communication and the game management by the referees was not very good, right? Like when they're going over and they're announcing inside the arena, we overturned that there was a foul. We didn't see a foul. That's not what happened. And that just causes more confusion and distrust. You have John Shire in the post-game press conference saying he doesn't know the rule they're referring to that's like deciding the game, right? Like that's not a way to settle a basketball game, right? And this was a really good game, a really competitive ACC game. And for it to come down to something like this is really disappointing. And I think the biggest thing, right, this is a really strange rule. I don't think any of us totally understand what the rule is, how it should be enforced. Right. But I think at the end of the day, the biggest thing is there's no transparency or accountability with the officials, right? Like there should be, if nothing else, a pool reporter who can sit with the officials and ask and get a clear, detailed explanation of like, here is how we came to the decision of this is the rule. This is why we call it this way. This is why, we took the foul off the board, and at least give fans an understanding of why they changed this game, right? The game's over when Filipowski gets fouled. The game's over as soon as he's going to go to the free throw line. He's going to make one. And so to me, that's the most disappointing thing, right? Like, I think it should be a foul based on what I saw, but I don't even know the rule well enough to know. And that's mostly because the refs haven't explained it to me. I have no idea what I'm looking at. I looked at the rule book. I can't find what they're looking at here. It's crazy.
Tyler, nobody hates Duke more than you, but did Duke get hosed here?
I hate to say it, but yeah, they did. They got hosed. The refs missed it. I mean, they blew the call. And the concerning part to me was they went back and looked at it on replay and didn't give them the foul. Yeah, still screwed them. And the other question, it's also kind of, does Shire doesn't have as much pull as K? And that comes to my mind because that K would have been on the sidelines. He would have been working the refs, classic K. I don't know that if he's still not coaching, they're not shooting free throws tonight. I think if Coach K was still on the sidelines, I think they'd be shooting 2 free throws to win the game in Virginia. So it is unfortunate that it came down to this call, but I'm with Kevin. It's still confusing. There's a lot of clarity that needs to happen with a lot of these calls, and we're sitting here talking about is this a foul? Is this not a foul? And no one really understands the rules.
And they should be able to put it out at least by now, right? Even if they don't do it right after the game, right? I get it. Maybe they screwed it up. They're still trying to figure things out, whether they screwed it up or not. And we could see an apology to John Shire tomorrow from the ACC. Who knows? But even if it takes a little while, they should be able to put out a statement as early as possible. This was the rule, whatever it was, rule 16-4-5. I don't care what it is. Here's the rule. Here's how it reads, so everybody understands it. That's one of my biggest problems. All right, getting to Duke now. Duke, Virginia. I think Virginia has slid under the radar for probably most of the season, to be honest. It's because they're not a sexy team to watch. Their upside isn't overly high, their ceiling. But I think again, Virginia's still got a chance because they're older. Tony Bennett's had this group for a year now, for the most part. I think they've got a chance. Duke, when I saw them beat Carolina last week in person, I was saying to myself, all right, if they get that Derek Lively again and they bring back Dariq Whitehead and he picks up where he left off, maybe. And then Lively comes out and plays a game like he did today. And I'm like, man, just when I was starting to feel like maybe I could trust this Duke team. But they did, Kevin. They played Virginia in Charlottesville to overtime, and they probably should have won the game in regulation.
100%. And look, I think this is a very gritty Duke team. Like, they are tough. They're willing to play a game in the 60s, right? They don't need to fly up and down the floor to win the game. But, I look at this and yes, it's easy to blame, one call at the end that could have won the game. And it is as much of a call as you could say that, changed the game as you could possibly imagine. But Duke turned it over 22 times today, and they turned it over 21 times against Miami earlier this week, right? Like, especially now that you have Jeremy Roach back, your veteran point guard, that can't happen. They need to value possessions more, especially because, look, this is not the best 3-point shooting team. This is a team that relies on getting extra shots off offensive rebounds. So if you're going to give away a bunch of possessions that you're getting back with those offensive boards, just throwing it to the other team, it's going to be really, really tough. And part of that's just youth, right? I mean, they do have, several freshmen in this rotation. Proctor has the ball in his hands a ton for a guy who could still be in high school. But they just have to value the basketball more. Otherwise, their only way to win is in, defensive grinders like this. And to win those games, they need Lively to really protect the rim.
All right, Tyler Hansbrough, what do you think of the Blue Devils here? Like, objective. Try to be objective here.
No, I'll be objective. And to be honest with you, I thought Duke would be much better. And I think they've been dealing with some injuries. Jeremy Roach hasn't been healthy all year, and seems like he still has a lingering toe issue or whatever he's going through. They have young players. Filipowski didn't play well today. Just like any freshman, he's going to have off nights. Early on in the season, he was playing really well, and I thought he was one of the best players in the country, actually, with his skill. So he's been struggling a little bit, and I think that when you have somebody that's got a little bit of experience, that's dealing with some injuries, and really they haven't had the leader. And I think Jeremy Roach, I expected him to be a really good player this year. I thought the way he came on at the end of the year last year, I thought he was going to be really explosive for Duke this year. So if they get everybody healthy and clicking, they get some leadership from the older guys, I think this is going to be a tough team. I hate to say that, but I think they're better than what people actually think.
They don't have a star, but they got a bunch of good players, is what it comes down to. Like Sweeney said, like they gotta tough it out, and they can do that. They can do that. They're not soft. You guys think Filipowski? I was sitting with my wife at the Duke Carolina game, and a guy asked me behind me about Filipowski and NBA potential, and he said, like, how could we be talking about Lively as a top 10 pick and Filipowski's not even on the board basically in the first round? I said, no, I think they've come a lot closer now. I think now you're probably talking Lively mid-first round and Filipowski as a lock first rounder. What do you think when you watch Filipowski, Tyler? You played in the NBA for a while. Obviously, the NBA has changed lately. Mm-hmm. What do you think of his chances to what type of player do you think he'll be in the NBA?
There's a old school player, Okur for Utah, who was a shooter, big, could step it outside. I think kind of similar, but I think the way the game has kind of transitioned to more skill and fundamentals and outside, I think Filipowski, I think it's kind of helped him as the NBA's. When I came out, it was more focused on, athleticism, and, you have these, Giannis would be a great example. Somebody who's extremely athletic, big, and can dominate the game with his size, but necessarily not the most skilled person in the world. But now the NBA is looking more for the skill. So I think that does help him because he does have decent size and he has a good skill set. So I think he could be like a stretch 4